This episode is sponsored by Smart Travel, a new podcast from NerdWallet. You know that one friend who always finds the best travel deals, picks the right cards, and somehow ends up in first class for the price of coach? How do they do that? Well, Smart Travel is like that friend, but in podcast form. They cover all things travel finance, like which travel cards earn their keep and which are just heavy, shiny metal, and planning group trips that won't ruin your budget or your friendships. So travel smarter and spend less. That's the key with help from NerdWallet. Follow Smart Travel wherever you get your podcasts. Armchair-Explorer is a part of the Voyescape podcast network. Check out all of their shows from around the world at voyescape.com. From wild coasts and volcanic peaks to lush vineyards and streets bursting with creativity, join me on the hidden trails of Oregon. We're going behind the travel veil to those secret places only locals know. In Oregon, the extraordinary is ordinary, and the adventure is about to begin. This week, we're in eastern Oregon, just outside of Pendleton, home of the world-famous Roundup. We're sitting down with an expert in Indigenous knowledge and history of the Cayuse, Umatilla, and Walla Walla people, and exploring a place that details 16,000 years of Native history and the untold side of the most famous immigrant trail in America. These tribes welcomed their earliest visitors with open arms, and despite everything, they continue to do so today.
From Yanawi, Shna Nami Ticham and the Kui Winiksha, Imatalam, and the Ku Nami Naimama, Kashpawa Cayuse, Umatilla, Walla Walla.
You have just entered into the homeland of the Umatillas, the Cayuses, and Walla Wallas.
My Indian name is Sisawipum. That's in the language of my grandmother, who was Columbia River Indian from the area called Wayam. She gave me that name when I was 13, and then about 26 years ago, I became the director of Tamástslikt Cultural Institute, where I still work.
And that's where we are today, enjoying a bright morning on the rolling prairie with Bobbie Conner.
So, as a kid, I grew up here, riding these fields, and now we have this multi-million-dollar world-class museum, and it's in my homeland, and our Cayuse, Umatilla, Walla Walla peoples tribal headquarters is right here on the Umatilla reservation. And Tamástslikt was built with three purposes in mind. One, to accurately depict the history and culture of the Cayuse and Umatilla and Walla Walla peoples, because everything you learned in elementary school, high school, college is wrong. Not every tribe is the same. We have different languages, different songs, different customs. The settling of the West, as it has been called, is the unsettling of the West for our people. Most of what has been written about our people is in the context of war. But most of you have not heard our perspective.
The stories and histories you will hear from our tribal members and our elders are their own words.
The other two reasons this museum was founded was to contribute to the tribal economy. We were a once quite wealthy people, and after the period of the exploration and the trappers and traders from Europe and America, and then the American missionaries, and then the government takeover of our lands, we became a group of people confined to a small footprint compared to our vast homeland. So that tribal economy became a subsistence economy, survival economy. But the third reason, besides contributing to the tribal economy, was that we wanted to perpetuate the technologies and knowledges of our people. We've lived in this land for more than 16,000 years. We want to live here forever because we've been here for all of our history. In order to perpetuate that knowledge and technology, we do scholarship and research. We've published our own tribal history book. We've published a Native Place Names Atlas that shows before Lewis and Clark came and started renaming things, they all had names. Those names are important for our tribal sovereignty because they are evidence that this is our homeland. The names are a database embedded with information that you won't have from the names of Lewis and Clark and Thompson and Pendleton.
The tale of Lewis and Clark's expedition and the Oregon Trail that followed in their footsteps is very well known. What isn't is the other side of that story, the native side, one of betrayal, war, displacement, and eventually slow reclamation. Bobbie has worked tirelessly with her confederated tribe to tell that history, but it wasn't easy. In 1993, the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation proposed a center to tell the story of the Oregon Trail from a Native American perspective. But they were told there was no budget for Indian interpretive centers, although that same year, more than $500,000 was allocated to another Oregon Trail museum. So on August 12th, a wagon train celebrating the 150th anniversary of the Oregon Trail was stopped by natives on horseback at the border of the Umatilla Reservation. One rider was Antone Minthorn, chairman of his tribal council, and he spoke in protest, describing the challenges faced by his people of poverty and unemployment, but also of his vision for a place of learning and research for all people, forever, for a different perspective on manifest destiny. And it worked. Within a year, funding was secured, and on July 31st, 1998, the Tamástslikt Cultural Institute opened its doors.
One of our elders who helped shape the exhibits came up with the term Tamástslikt. It means to turn. So if you turn over a word into another language, that would be interpret. So not only are we interpreting our history, but we're turning the story around.
The earth and myself are of one mind, said young Chief Joseph. And that's where our journey through the Institute begins, with how the natural universe shaped the existence of the people.
It would take me 3 days to tell you that story. But we were created here. We've always been here. When this world was created, it was the water that was created first. When the water was created, it spoke a promise. I am going to take care of the Indian people. I am going to give life to everything. And then the land was created, and the land spoke a promise. I am going to take care of the Indian people from the day they are born till the day they die. And these are the foods that are going to take care of them.
Before this became a patchwork quilt of wheatland and further on peas and other crops, this would have been a vast grazing land with pothole marshes, rich for the migratory flyway north and south. Tules and cattails grow in those marshes, and we covered our lodges with them. The teepee poles for the tule mat lodges that we erect are just up here in the foothills. If you go a half an hour up into the mountains past the timberline, you will be at the summit about 4,600 feet, and you can harvest other foods at that elevation. So our homeland is alpine furs and alpine foods and alpine wildlife all the way to sea level.
The people follow the seasons with their food sources, but winter was for village life, where valleys and waterways gave protection from harsh weather. And every midwinter, villages would come alive with song, dances, and feasts.
They're singing about the land of light, the light that comes from inside of us, the light that comes from inside the earth, the light that lives on the other side of the veil where our elders go when they pass away. And those songs are talking about the promise of our future. And they're talking about the prayers for the foods that we consume and the species we live with. So when our people say that we're praying for the landscape and the land feels our footsteps when we dance, It hears our prayers when we sing. It hears the drum beats. It's true.
But songs weren't just prayers. They were also how the people kept their history and culture alive from generation to generation.
There is one song that Grandma sang for us one time, that your days are counted in your life and you have to be accountable for each day that you live. But she recorded these songs for preservation purposes, and she gave us these songs to listen to remind us of our religion and of our lives and how we live them. Because she said, you want to live your life right, otherwise you won't see me again. People have a Bible that they, use to read. Well, we have songs, and you just sing that and carry it on.
The people believed that every living being was a story, and every storytelling was a time for learning. From childhood up, their oral traditions helped them understand the entire world around them, a world that was much more interconnected than outsiders thought.
We traded with the people from the other side of the big mountains. We traded with people who came from the ocean, the Great Basin, and what's now known as California, British Columbia, and Alberta. People may not be aware of it, but right there on the Columbia River in Oregon, as well as across the river in Washington, is Celilo. And it's a place where the most magnificent waterfall in the West and the richest salmon fishery for more than 10,000 years was. It's now inundated under what's Lake Celilo behind the Dalles Dam, which is a hydroelectric dam. But when you stand at Celilo Park and imagine a series of falls, iconic, more grand than Niagara Falls, you can imagine that people came from thousands of miles away because it was one of the 6 or 7 great North American continental trade centers for indigenous people here. And so we live in a place that was kind of a crossroads of history for a very long time, even before Europeans came.
The key to this network was the acquisition of the horse. Oral tradition says local tribes traded for them with the Shoshone, and in the early 1800s, at the peak of the people's power in this area, some families would have herds in the thousands. But not long after the arrival of the horse, spiritual leaders began warning of great change, and visions became reality as foreigners and foreign disease arrived. Some of the first outsiders to settle in Oregon were missionaries that brought gospel and, in their minds, civilization to indigenous peoples. But differing Christian groups competed to control conversion and their vision for the future of the wandering Indians, as they called them.
You have said the whites are like the wind. You cannot stop them.
Old Chief Joseph once said, "We do not want churches. They will teach us to quarrel about God, as the Catholics and Protestants do. We may quarrel with men sometimes about things on this earth, but we never quarrel about God. We do not want to learn that." Soon the people became disenchanted with missionaries, seeing them as normal men and women with human weaknesses. And so they started to push back, resulting in many wars and eventually hundreds of treaties that recognized tribal sovereignty, but at a cost. Huge amounts of land had to be given away.
Our people ceded more than 6 million acres to the United States government and were moved onto a reservation.
And so the process of assimilation had begun.
St. Andrews was established in 1847. Parochial schools are strict. There's no fooling around about their instructions. You have to learn it.
We used to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, go out and drill. They used to call us the CBB, the Catholic Boys Brigade. We did everything by the bugle.
Boarding schools were created to drain indigenous lifestyles from tribal kids. They were fiercely punished for speaking their own languages or wearing their own clothes.
We always got punished, and I always try to forget those times because it makes you feel bad. But I think that molded us to accept all the disappointments that we had later on in life.
For breakfast, twice a week, we'd have cornmeal mush. And there'd be big worms in that mush, and if you didn't set that damn worm aside and eat that mush, you didn't get any more. That was it. If you talked Indian in Chemawa, you got whipped for it. Many times I got whipped, spread eagle on a table with a rubber hose. I didn't know what I was getting whipped for.
But nothing could stop students from maintaining the old ways.
We would steal away up the creek there. There'd be a lot of wild horses up there. We'd catch them, we'd have our own fletching, arrow fletching, we'd make arrows, make our own bows, and we'd kill game with what we had. So we could stay out any length of time until bed check when they played taps, and we'd sneak in. We are the boys from CBB, rough and tough, hard to bluff.
Don't take anything for granted. The land, the water, the elders, the songs, the traditions. If we lose those things, we lose who we are.
In my generation, when I was in elementary school, there were 5 kids on the bus who spoke their language our tribal language as a first language. And all of those people are revered elders now because they are an encyclopedia, each of them. Their lives are like encyclopedias to us.
As the process of assimilation tried to stamp out native language and culture, the creatures and land native people had stewarded for thousands of years suffered with them.
The Columbia River and all of its tributaries were once teeming with fish and provided our people with one of their main sources of food.
Salmon are anadromous. This means that they are born in the river, they travel downstream to the ocean to mature, and then they swim back upstream to the place where they were born, to spawn and to die. The dams created obstacles for the salmon. All other river life was also affected.
The Grand Ronde doesn't have the fish it used to have. For 70 years, the Umatilla River had no Chinook runs.
After the dams, the river changed fast and dramatically.
We're still hunters. We're still fishermen. We still dig our roots. We still pick the berries. We still live on the foods that the Creator gave us a very, 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 very long time ago. We want our young people to be able to do and to know what our ancestors knew. So for our people to be strong here, it's been necessary for us to get water back in the river, spring and fall Chinook salmon back in the rivers, which we've done over the last 42 years.
The Confederated Tribes took action, sponsoring programs that restore natural migration and improving habitats and water quality.
Yeah, my mother used to tell me that the salmon were so thick that they could almost walk across the river on the backs of the salmon. And I never thought that I would see that. But about 3 years ago, my husband took me down by the hatchery up at Meacham Creek. And the fish were just thick coming in, trying to get into the hatchery. And I just told my husband, I never thought I would see what my mother had seen. It's just like bringing history back.
And as native stewardship has returned to their ancestral lands, the people's agency and standing in their community has grown as well.
Our tribes were pitiful in the early 1900s. And what I look at today is that I went to Pendleton High School. When I graduated with a class of 243 people, there were 6 or 7 tribal kids in that class. The others were in boarding schools. I can guarantee you that none of my classmates thought that they would be drawing a paycheck from the Confederated Tribes of Umatilla, because we didn't have any jobs. The tribal government, when my grandfather was an elected official, had maybe 1 employee. Then it was 5 or 6. Then it was 150. We have more than 2,500 employees now. And we have people from other tribes who come here for jobs. And those are technical, professional jobs as attorneys, jobs as judges. We have all kinds of people working for us. And that crossover, that economic crossover, the fact that Confederated Tribe now owns what used to be the Country Club golf course as well as our 18-hole championship golf course here, the fact that we own Hamley's Western Store, Hamley's Steakhouse, Hamley's Saloon, downtown Pendleton, that's an economic relationship, and that's every day of the year. And that, for me, is the history we've been making.
At the end of the permanent exhibit in Tamástslikt, you'll see one simple message. We will never fade. As long as the earth shall last, there will be life. Our life is the land.
Ancient peoples who have stayed in their homelands have an inextricable bond to place. And we may be transient going out in the world and going to college and working and coming back here, but this is the only place that will ever be home to me and to the people of our tribe, because it's been home for so very long. And I think that the stewardship and the care that our people give the water and the land and the species is representative of that inextricable bond to place. And if you're going to live someplace for thousands of years, you take better care of it. This planet needs us, every single one of us, to take better care of the places where they live.
Thanks for joining me on the hidden trails of Oregon. And remember, you can visit Tamástslikt Cultural Institute and explore every exhibit yourself. There's so much that we couldn't cover here, and it's an incredibly inspirational and humbling experience. It's just outside of Pendleton, and when you come here, it will change your perspective on the whole of Eastern Oregon. So it's a great place to start your trip. Thank you to Bobbie Conner and all the staff at the Institute for helping to make this happen. If you'd like to take these hidden trails yourself, you can find out how to do that by going to traveloregon.com. There is tons of great info up there about this trip and everything else you need to know to plan your next Oregon adventure. And our trip isn't ending here. We're going to be spending some time in Eastern Oregon. There's lots more to see and do. So hit that subscribe button and follow us wherever you get your shows, because you're not going to want to miss any of this. This series was produced by Armchair Productions, the audio experts for the travel industry. Find out more at armchair-productions.com. Brian Thacker led our pre-production, Charles Tyree assisted on audio editing, and the episode was recorded by Jason Patton, who also wrote and co-produced it along with me, your host, Aaron Miller. We'll see you next time.
Quick question. Do you want travel tips from people who have actually been there?
Our show is co-hosted by Tim Johnson, an award-winning travel journalist who's been to more than 145 countries around the world. And I'm David Brody, the other co-host who's been travel podcasting for 20 years while traveling to 50-plus countries around the world.
In about 10 or 20 minutes per show, we break down a destination with the kind of insight you usually only get from long guidebooks or hours of research.
So if you want expert advice, zero fluff, and travel inspiration that you can actually use, search for Travel in 10 wherever you listen to podcasts, or you can also find us at boyescape.com.
Hi, I'm Pauline Fromer, host of the Fromer's Travel Podcast. We post new episodes weekly, detailing the kinds of money-saving tips and cultural insights that will make your trips richer without making you significantly poorer. We do so by interviewing real travel experts like TV host Samantha Brown, Fromer's authors from around the globe, and such public figures as Free Solo's Alex Honnold. It's a fun travel party. I hope you can join us.